Hey everyone, Spice here and welcome to my hardcore type lock of Pokemon Black. In this playthrough of Pokemon, I wanted to see if I could beat a hardcore Pokemon Black Nuzlocke but with half the Pokemon type chart banned. So as well as standard hardcore Nuzlocke rules which are on screen now, I've used a high-tech wheel instrument to ban half the types. This will mean I can't use any Pokemon that have any of these banned types, and I can't use any moves that have those types either. This includes status moves. And once our high-tech wheel is done, we can see that we've got Dark, Dragon, Electric, Poison, Fire, Ghost, Grass, and Ground. This is an interesting selection because a lot of these are quite good, but they're also quite rare. Dark, Dragon, Fire, and Electric all don't come up very much, including Ghost. However, Grass, Poison, and Ground do come up quite a lot, so there's a decent mix. With all the basic rules out of the way, we can jump straight into this run. As this is my first video, I'd ask if you enjoyed it, give it a like, and if you want to see more, subscribe. And with that, we get to choose our starter. Obviously, Water type is banned, so Oshawott is off the table. Tepig generally is better than Snivy, but I can't use any of Tepig's evolutions, so it's going to fall off fast because it evolves into a firefighting type. So Snivy, while actually being probably the least useful of the three starters, is what I go for on this first attempt. And we very quickly realised that choosing Snivy was a mistake. After naming Snivy Apple, because I had a very creative nickname idea for this run, we tried to escape our rivals only to be ambushed as soon as we ran out of town. We get to the next town, finally thinking that we might escape our annoying rivals, only to run into another rival. And immediately challenges us to a battle, and his level 7 Purloin nearly ends this entire run. Now, I should have leveled up a bit more, but I didn't realise after a Growl, which is what Purloin goes for first here, that Vine Whip would be doing quite so little. Turns out that Snivy actually isn't very good, even with a stab Vine Whip. Luckily, Purloin, only knowing Scratch, is also not doing a lot of damage. But, I mean, considering we're both hitting each other with wet flannels at this point, an unlucky crit could end the run before it's even started. After a lot of back and forth Vine Whipping and scratching, we do eventually kill the Purloin, but we do come a little bit close, because one more hit would have killed me, as Purloin manages to get us down to 1 HP, meaning if my nature or IVs were a little bit different, we would have actually just lost the run. Luckily, we do beat N just by the skin of our teeth, and that means we can go get our first encounter of the run. A Purloin we lovingly name Fig. Purloin would probably be a half-decent encounter. Dark types, as I mentioned earlier, are quite rare, and the stats on it aren't terrible, but Purloin's move pool in Gen 5 is absolutely awful. So while it will be good for the beginning of the game, if it survives till late game, it will be being benched. For now though, Fig joins the team. Before we get to the next town, we do get challenged by Bianca, but because most of these fights are actually a joke and there's so many of them, I will be cutting them out of the run. After beating Bianca, we immediately get to Stration City and challenge Cheren to another fight. I do have a level advantage over Tepig, but it's still super effective against me and Vine Whip is not doing a lot. I switch into Purloin, I very quickly realise his only valid move is Sand Attack, so that could be a little bit of an issue. We continue to go for Sand Attack just to lower Tepig's accuracy, so hoping that Apple can defeat Tepig without taking too much damage and then take out Cheren's Purloin in the back. Unfortunately though, just when I'm ready to switch Snivy back in, Cheren gets a critical hit, killing Fig the cat. I realise at this point, the only hope I have of winning this fight is getting lucky with Sand Attack misses, because Vine Whip is still not doing a whole lot. Apple manages to get a critical hit, but that's not as lucky as you think, because an Oran Berry immediately heals all of that damage back up. Tepig keeps going for Tail Whip here, which is useful against the Tepig, but it does mean the Purloin, when it gets sent out, is going to do a lot of damage. Luckily, Tepig then goes to tackle and misses, and right before I manage to get the kill on it, it goes through Ember and manages to hit, leaving me really loath to dealing with this Purloin. The only way I'm going to win this at this point is if I get very lucky with the AI being stupid, or it goes to status moves, or I get a crit. Unfortunately, I do not get insanely lucky at this point, and that's the end of attempt 1. I really went into this not really thinking about these first couple of fights, thinking I'd be able to steamroll them. Fortunately, if I want to win this run, I'm going to have to put in a tiny bit more effort into actually planning things, or paying the slightest bit of attention. With that, we begin attempt 2. Thinking about it a bit more, we realise Snivy probably isn't as useful as I made him out to be, and Tepig will be better for the earlier game, and give me access to an elemental monkey, making Cheren fights a lot easier. And make the first gym pretty much guaranteed, which with Snivy would have been a very lucky toss-up. With that, we re-challenge Cheren with Cucumber the monkey and Tomato the Tepig. Cucumber, despite Cheren healing Oshawott with an Oran Berry, 2-shots the Oshawott with a Vine Whip, and then proceeds to Vine Whip the Purloin twice, and finish it off with little to no trouble. And thus, Apple the Snivy was avenged, and we never talk about the fact that on my first Nuzlocke video on YouTube, I managed to wipe before the first gym. And with that, we're against the first gym leader. The first gym leader is actually determined by what type you choose, so because I chose Tepig this time, I'm actually fighting Cress. We start the fight by sending out Fig and using Sand Attack because he still hasn't learned a Dark type move. Lillipup just goes for the Bite, which misses. Now I could go for more Sand Attacks here to lower Lillipup's accuracy even more, but I'm a bit worried about it working up and sweeping my entire team, so I switched to Tepig. Lillipup does go for Work Up, so I made the correct choice. I go for Ember, which does about a third of its HP, and it goes for another Work Up, meaning it's a +2 at this point and slightly worrying. I go for another Ember, and Lillipup goes for a Bite, which luckily misses thanks to the Sand Attacks from Purloin. Lillipup then goes to the Bite again, which does a decent chunk, but Tepig luckily can finish it off with an Ember without taking too much damage. Tepig then learns Flame Charge, which is an excellent move for Tepig because it's physical, stab, and raises our speed every time we use it. And because we'd edged Purloin to the level cap, it means it levels up and learns an actual useful move in Pursuit, meaning it can now actually attack. Cress then sends out Pampor, which would be an issue, but luckily we've got Cucumber the Elemental Monkey, which completely walls and destroys his Pampor. I clearly have the better monkey. Pampor goes to Work Up and we immediately start hitting with hard Vine Whips that do just under half, and Pampor retaliates with a weak Water Gun. We go for another Vine Whip which just misses the KO, and Pampor can do nothing but hit us with another weak Water Gun. I don't really understand why it's going for Water Gun, not Fury Swipes or Lick, which you would think would do more damage, but I'm not going to complain. Cheren heals up with a potion, but 2 more Vine Whips are enough to still knock out the Pampor, winning us our first badge of the run. Before we can do anything else, we get dragged into a girl's bedroom who asks us to do a side quest to something that's been shut down since 2014, which surprisingly isn't the worst date I've ever been on. Then we leave and go watch some animal abuse, which is a bit weird, and then they seem to get high, and somehow this is still not the worst date I've ever been on. And then before our next encounter, we run into another rival fight. I know it's been complained about to death, but don't exaggerate. Like, there are so many rival fights in this game and they really don't let up. I'll be cutting a lot of them out unless anything interesting happens from this point, because nobody wants to sit and watch me fight 400 rivals. With that out of the way, we get to something more interesting, which is our next encounter. A Blitzel I named Banana. Banana is incredibly fast and very frail, like a lot of the electric types, but this encounter will actually be invaluable for the rest of the run, which clearly shows the power of Potassium. Immediately after this in Wellspring Cave, we found our next encounter, a Drillbur that I named Lime. Unfortunately, because steel typing is banned, I won't be able to get an extra drill, but Drillbur will still be useful for the early game. Luckily, because the level cap is now 20, Purloin evolves into Lipard, which is very lucky because the next gym kind of scares me. For the second gym leader in the game, Lenora is no joke. Herdia knows Takedown and will hit incredibly hard and starts off with Intimidate, and then on top of that, her next Pokemon is a fully evolved Watchdog that knows Crunch, Retaliate and Hypnosis. So as you can tell, I'm full of confidence that we can do this deathless. And with that, let's start the second gym battle. Because of Herdia's Intimidate, I don't want to start off with any of my physical attackers. This is annoying because 4 out of 5 of my Pokemon are actually physical. Because of this, I start off with Cucumber, hoping to get a Leech Seed off for some chip and some recovery. Luckily, Leech Seed hits, but I get hit by a very hard takedown, and even with Leech Seed recovery, I'm not going to survive another one, so I have to switch out. The problem is none of my Pokemon are physically bulky enough to survive a crit or at least 2 attacks. I take a risk switching into Tomato and just hoping that Herdia won't get a crit, which luckily it doesn't. Thanks to Leech Seed recovery, it means that Herdia isn't guaranteed to kill on the next hit unless it gets the high roll. Unfortunately though, Herdia doesn't get the low roll and Tomato goes down. Rest in peace Tomato, you were too good for this world. Gotta love losing your starter. I then switch into Banana, who's able to outspeed the Herdia and hit it with a strong shockwave, which unfortunately does miss the KO, meaning Herdia is able to get another takedown off, which does kill it because of recoil damage but leaves Banana very low. Then the Watchdog comes out, and again this thing kind of scares me because anything on my team is going to die to a crit Retaliate at this point, and I can't afford too many more losses if I want to keep this run alive. I'm going to have to pick a potential sacrifice here. I decide the Pokemon I mind losing least here is Lime, as he will fall off fast as he can't evolve. Lime does hang on with 5 HP, but unfortunately I'm going to have to sacrifice him here to bring something else in cleanly. So we salute our brave little mole who goes to dig, but unfortunately is outsped and killed. Rest in peace Lime, we barely knew you. Luckily thanks to Lime's sacrifice we're able to bring Lipard in without taking any damage. Lipard knows the move Torment, which I hope will stop Watchdog spamming the same move over and over again, like putting my entire team to sleep with Hypnosis. So we go for Torment, and Watchdog goes for a Hypnosis, which luckily misses. I then go for Thief, which doesn't do a lot of damage, only for Watchdog to retaliate with a Leer, lowering my defense. Because Thief is doing so little damage, next time I decide to go for Sand Attack to lower Watchdog's accuracy. Unfortunately, Watchdog decides it doesn't like this, hits through the accuracy drop and crits and kills me. At this point, things are looking pretty dire. I've got 2 Pokemon left on very low health, and Watchdog will probably one-shot both of them. I send in Cucumber and use Leech Seed to hopefully get some chip damage and recover some HP. Watchdog lands a Hypnosis, but luckily I gave Cucumber a Chesto Berry before the fight, so the Hypnosis is instantly cured. I then go through a Vine Whip, which brings Watchdog below half HP, and then get hit by a very hard Retaliate that nearly kills Cucumber. Luckily, on the next turn I outspeed, hit Watchdog with a hard Vine Whip and managed to knock him out. I got a crit, which would have been nice like 5 minutes ago, but at least we won the battle. Just. But honestly, that was a devastating victory. We're going to need a little bit of time to repair our team, which is easier said than done considering we only get 2 encounters before the next gym. One of which is outside in Pinwheel Forest, a cottony we nickname Melon. Past Casellia City, our next encounter is a 50-50 chance either a Darumaka or a Sandile. And obviously, considering all of our Pokemon are currently not very useful against the next gym, we really could use the Darumaka. So what do we end up with? The Sandile. I mean, Sandile is great, but it's weak to Bug, which leaves us in a bit of an awkward position for the next gym. But I'm sure that won't be an issue. So welcome to the Team Gore. We also are able to evolve Cucumber into a Simisage with the Leaf Stone we pick up in Castellia City. And with that, it's time to fight Berg and his Bug types. Here's hoping for a bit better luck than the last gym. I start off with Gord the Sandile, which unfortunately doesn't have Intimidate, and Berg starts off with Whirlipede. Gord is weak to Struggle Bug, so I go for Torment to not take too much damage. Whirlipede goes to the Screech, which lowers my defense by 2 stages. This puts me at range of the crit, so I switch into Banana, the only other Pokemon I have that's not weak to any of Whirlipede's moves. Whirlipede then goes through a weak Poison Tail, which barely does any damage to Banana. I then decide to switch back into Gord to only then be hit by another Screech, which is only 85% accurate, by the way. Unless, I guess, you're Berg, or you're cheating, which apparently there's not a lot of difference between the two. I tried to stop the Screech spam by going for Sand Attack to lower Whirlipede's accuracy, and luckily Whirlipede then misses a Poison Tail. Then go for a second Sand Attack, only through a Screech to land through 2 accuracy drops. You've got to be kidding. At minus 4 defense, I'm going to be taking a lot of damage, so I switch into Cucumber, who manages to avoid a Poison Tail on the switch in. Apparently Screech is the only move that can't miss the Bug. Cucumber then lands a Leech Seed to get some chip damage, only through the curse of Screech never missing to finally be lifted as Whirlipede misses a Screech. This luck will not continue. I then switch back into Gord, who gets hit by a weak Poison Tail, and then Leech Seed recovers most of the damage anyway. I then lower Whirlipede's accuracy even more with the Sand Attack, but Whirlipede doesn't care about that because he then hits the Screech through a minus 3 accuracy drop. Probably should switch out here because I'm at minus 2 defense, but at this point I just want to start doing some damage, so I go through a Sand Tube. And Whirlipede hits a decently strong Poison Tail. It was definitely worth lowering its accuracy 3 times. Oh well, I'm sure we won't have any more bullshit luck this fight. That's what we call foreshadowing. Thanks to chips from Sand Tomb and Leech Seed, Whirlipede at this point is quite low, so I go through another Sand Tomb, hoping for the KO. But before chip damage can take it out, it actually goes to the Struggle Bug, its super effective move which it hasn't used once during this fight so far, which gets Sandile down into the red. Varney will probably see the kill with Razor Leaf and Struggle Bug here, and I risk it and send in Cucumber, who at least resists the Razor Leaf. Luckily my gamble pays off and Leathani does go for Razor Leaf and it only does a tiny bit of chip damage to Cucumber. Hoping that Leathani will see more damage with Struggle Bug, I then send in Banana, who won't get hit by a harder Razor Leaf. Luckily Leathani actually only goes for a String Shot to lower my speed. At full HP, Leathani won't go down to a Flame Charge, so I start going for Thunder Wave to hopefully paralyze it. Unfortunately though, Leathani decides it doesn't like this idea and gets 2 protects in a row. Leathani then hits with a Razor Leaf that if it had critted would have killed, but luckily it doesn't and we get the Thunder Wave off. I could go for a Flame Charge here, but because I've had my speed drop by String Shot, I'm not actually sure even with the Thunder Wave if I'd outspeed, so I switch out into Cucumber, who will take the Razor Leaf that's coming better than any other Pokemon I have. Unfortunately, Razor Leaf still does a decent amount, and then I try going for Thief, which does absolutely nothing. Luckily, Leathani gets paralyzed. I realise I'm in trouble here, so I go for Bite, hoping to get the Flinch or the Paralyze. Unfortunately, I don't, and then I get hit by a Struggle Bug, which leaves me really low. I decide my best chance is to go for another Bite, and again hope for the Paralyze or the Flinch, but unfortunately I don't, and Cucumber goes down. Luckily, from this range, Banana can outspeed and kill with Flame Charge. Banana kills Berg's ace with a critical hit Flame Charge, meaning Berg's down to his last Pokemon, a Dwebble that neither of my remaining Pokemon can really handle. It is a 2v1 however, so I'm hoping that I can still pull this fight off. Dwebble comes in and I debate going for a Thunder Wave, but after the trouble I had paralysing Leathani, I decided that it's better to get some damage and go for Shockwave. Shockwave does a good chunk and gets Dwebble just above half, but unfortunately it retaliates with a Smackdown that nearly kills Banana. Banana wouldn't survive another move, so I decide to switch into Melon. Because Melon's defences are so low, it actually takes a decent amount of damage on the switch in through Smackdown. Then decide to go for Stun Spore to avoid taking too much more damage considering Smackdown did so much. Luckily Stun Spore hits, but unfortunately Dwebble didn't get the memo because he still hits with a very hard Struggle Bug. Struggle Bug also lowers our special attack, so on the next turn, instead of going for Mega Drain, I decided to go for Leech Seed. Dwebble decides it doesn't want to get paralysed for the second time in a row and kills Melon with a Struggle Bug. Then sending Gourd for the simple fact it's got slightly more HP, so I'm hopeful it won't be killed by the Dwebble. I then had the choice between Sand Tomb and Sand Attack. Sand Attack hasn't worked out so far the rest of this fight, so I decided to go for the Sand Tomb. Unfortunately, while Sand Tomb does hit and do some damage, Dwebble then retaliates and kills Gourd with this Struggle Bug. All I've got left at this point is Banana, and I've got to pray through a Paralyze or get lucky with a Shockwave at high roll. So we go for Shockwave, just praying that it will get the kill, but unfortunately it just misses out, and then Dwebble decides that it still doesn't want him paralysed, and unfortunately ends our second attempt. I think I could have played better in that fight. I was definitely too passive, but at the same time, luck played a part in us losing. I could play some emotional music and make some stupid speech, but to be honest, sometimes when you get unlucky, you just gotta get back up and start again. So here's attempt number 3. Everything in attempt 3 is identical to attempt 2, up until Lenora, where everything went wrong last time, so we're gonna just skip right to that bit. Lenora sends out Herdia to start again, and this time we change it up by sending out Banana first. We immediately go for Thunder Wave to paralyse the annoying Herdia, and luckily this time it actually gets paralysed. Maybe attempt 3 is the lucky attempt. I debate switching out here to keep Banana healthy, but I decide it's better to just go for a Shockwave and get some decent damage. Shockwave actually gets a crit, and Herdia gets paralysed for a second turn in a row. Clearly I was saving all my luck for this fight. Then we outspeed and kill with another Shockwave. That was so much easier than last time. But then the Watchdog comes out, and this is where it could all go wrong. But I mean, if my luck is even half as good as the beginning of this fight, we've got this in the bag. As I knocked out Herdia last turn, Retaliate from this Watchdog is going to do double power, and will probably kill anything on my team, especially if it crits. I'm a bit stuck on what to switch into. I ultimately go for Lipard because it's got the highest defense, and if I lose it, while it's very annoying, it's not the end of the world. So I switch into Fig, and luckily Watchdog just goes to Hypnosis, which misses. I then go through a Pursuit boosted by a Dark Gem I found while looking for Lime in Wayward Cave. Watchdog then misses another Hypnosis. I then decide to go for Torment so it can't just spam Hypnosis. But Watchdog just goes to the Leer. Am I being given a 3 gym badge here? I then go through another Pursuit, which does a decent chunk of damage, and Watchdog just goes for another Hypnosis that misses. I need to go buy a lottery ticket. I then go through a Pursuit on the next turn, outspeed and kill, and that's how you do the second gym. You just get incredibly lucky, apparently. And with that, we're back at Berg. This time, because I did Lenora Deathless, I actually have a choice of what team members to bring. I catch another Sandile, which I also named Gourd, but I decide to box him because I can use him to repel Manip after this gym and guarantee a Darumaka. And with that, we're against Berg again. I decide to start off with Lime this time, just because it will do quite well into Whirlipede. Hopefully Lime can do a bit better than Gourd the Sandile did last time against this Whirlipede. Last time we did this fight, I played very passively, so this time I immediately go for our strongest damaging move, Dig, and Whirlipede just goes through a Pursuit, which I don't think it used the entirety of last game. Dig connects and does a decent amount of damage to Whirlipede. Unfortunately, it just leaves it a slither above half, leaving it to a roll whether another Dig would kill, so I go through a Hone Claws to avoid bringing it down into the red and having it heal. It's also a pretty 3 Hone Claws, considering that Whirlipede's only going for Struggle Bug, which is literally doing nothing. So on the next turn then we go for another Dig, and because of our Hone Claws boost we actually manage to get the kill and take down the Whirlipede with minimal difficulty. Clearly relying on Sand Attack and playing so passively last time was where we were wrong. Berg then sends in his Ace Lidani, and unfortunately there's no way Lime is going to survive the Razor Leaf, so as much as I want to hit it with the Hone Claws boosted Dig, it's not going to survive long enough to do it. Because of this I switch into Tomato, who should be able to take the Razor Leaf relatively well. Lidani still does a decent chunk considering the Razor Leaf is resisted. Next time I go through a Flame Charge boosted by a Charcoal, which I'm hoping will one-shot the Lidani considering its Thought Time is weak. I take another Razor Leaf and luckily Flame Charge gets the kill. With Berg's Ace down, that only leaves the Dwebble that ended this run last time, but with a team of 6, mostly healthy Pokemon, I'm going to assume I'm going to win. After taking 2 Razor Leafs to the face, Tomato is a bit too low to leave in, especially with Smackdown, so I switch into Banana, who's hoping to get some revenge to run 2. Unfortunately, Smackdown does a decent amount, but leaves me just above half, so I should be fine here to outspeed and go for a Shockwave, which does a decent amount. Banana then gets hit by another Smackdown that leaves me dangerously close to dying, and if I'd been crit there, I would have lost someone. Luckily, it doesn't. I am forced to switch, however. To be honest, Cucumber's my best option here, considering it resists a Smackdown and is probably able to hit the Dwebble hardest out of anyone else on my team. On the switching, Cucumber takes a Smackdown, but it barely does anything. I then go for a Seed Bomb, which is able to finish off the Dwebble. And with that, we've got our 3rd gym badge, no deaths. So we can actually now continue on with the rest rest of the game. And in fact, our next encounter is just around the corner in the desert resort. Because we didn't level up Gord the Sandile past level 19, we can repel Manip to get a Darumaka. And to be honest, Darumaka is one of the best encounters in the game. When it evolves into a Manatan, it can easily sweep the entire Elite Four, so to have it guaranteed is amazing. The only problem with Darumaka is that before it evolves, it has the ability Hustle, which raises the attack power of all moves and makes every single attack have a chance to miss, which in a Nuzlocke is really bad. Other than that though, I'm very excited to add Pumpkin to the team. Inside Nimbasa City, we also pick up a Sunstone, which means we can evolve Melon into a Whimsicott, and Whimsicott, while already having Grass Type on my team, is very superior to Simisage and is amazing as a support Pokemon, thanks to the ability Prankster, which gives priority to any status moves. And because our level cap is now 27, that's the perfect level for Banana to evolve into a Zebstrika, which off the top of my head is probably the fastest encounter you can get in this game, especially with my rule set, so Zebstrika will be a welcome addition, even if it is still quite frail. We also catch a Yang Mask in Relic Castle, which is an excellent encounter, and then we get a not so excellent encounter in Trubbish, which unfortunately will be being boxed. Then we go on a date with N on a Ferris wheel, because this game seems to love sending me on pseudo dates. It goes well, we get ice cream. Then unfortunately something much less fun than a date with N and ice cream happens on our way to the next gym. We run into this random trainer with 2 Emolgas, and I haven't shown you any battles that aren't rival fights or gym leaders at this point, so you might be slightly concerned for my Pokemon safety. You might question why though, because obviously my Zebstrika is easily going to be able to take down these Emolgas with a shockwave that can't miss, especially if they set up double team. But unfortunately, while the first Emolga goes down very easily, I decide to switch Banana out because I'm slightly concerned of getting over the level cap, as I had to get him right to the level cap to evolve him. So I switch into Tomato, assuming that things will be fine. I take a weak pursuit on the switch in and get off a flame charge the next turn, which does a decent amount of damage, but unfortunately Emolga then goes through a spark which crits and kills, which must have been a high roll because I had quite a lot of HP and an Eviolite. It really sucks to lose your starter to a random trainer and have it be your first death of the run, but unfortunately we're just going to have to move on. Rest in peace Tomato. And you Emolga. We make some adjustments to our team. I decide to bench my grass types because they're weak to every single one of this electric type gym leader's team. And with that we start the fight. I decide to send in Gord first because this time Gord has Intimidate, which will lower the damage this Emolga can do. I then switch into Banana, who I feel is my best bet for this fight. He can't be paralysed because he's an electric type, hits the Emolgas to neutral damage. I then switch in on a weak Aerial Ace, which basically does nothing. I then debate switching out again to get another Intimidate off, but I just decide it's doing so little that it's not worth it. I go for a strong Spark that does just above half damage, and then I get paralysed, which I didn't think was a thing in this generation. Emolga then retaliates with a Volt Switch, but because of my Motor Drive it doesn't actually do anything. Then the AI decides to hard switch out, which is the very rare thing for it to do. I guess it was determined to switch because the Volt Switch didn't work. Unsure on that one. I've now accidentally given the Zebstrika a Motor Drive boost, so I decide to go to Flame Charge to get some damage. Unfortunately I get paralysed and hit by a decently hard Quick Attack. On the next turn I go for another Flame Charge and get hit by another Quick Attack. At this point I'm low enough where I'm forced to switch out, so I switch into Gord to get another Intimidate, just to lower this thing's damage a little bit. Unfortunately though, on the switch in, Zebstrika gets a crit, which means that I can't really safely switch Gord back in. I was planning to Intimidate it a few more times, but I can't anymore. I decide to switch into Kiwi Yang Mask because of its immunity to Quick Attack, but unfortunately Zebstrika goes through a Flame Charge which crits. Because it crits, I assume that Spark at this range with an Intimidate won't kill, but unfortunately on the next turn, Kiwi goes down. This was purely a misplay on my part, to be honest. I should have switched out, but I thought it would be fine. Losing such a valuable encounter to such a stupid misplay is very annoying, but we carry on. Elesa comes back out with her Emolga, and I decide to switch back into Banana, who's immune to most of its attacks. I get off a strong Spark, and Emolga goes to the Volt Switch again. I realise at this point the AI will probably hard switch like it did last time, and my prediction is correct, so we get a Flame Charge off on the Zebstrika. Flame Charge does a decent chunk, bringing Zebstrika fairly low, but unfortunately, because I'm paralysed, I won't outspeed on the next turn, so I decided to switch into Gord to get off another Intimidate. It's a bit of a risk, but probably one that's worth it. So we send in Gord and we pray that the Zebstrika doesn't get a crit. It goes to the Flame Charge, and thank God it doesn't. It does get the speed boost however, but at the same time, got the Intimidate and we didn't lose anyone. Gord is fairly low at this point, and I make what is definitely a misplay. I decide to go for Dig, which will kill the Zebstrika, but it means I have to survive another Flame Charge and not get crit again. To be honest, this is a stupid move. I should have just switched it to Drillbur, but luckily we're not punished and we're able to take out the Zebstrika. And as a reward for our risky play, Gord learns Crunch, which is an excellent Dark-type move. We've taken out Elisa's Ace, and that only leaves 2 Emolgas, one of which is paralysed and they're both on fairly low HP, so this should be a cakewalk. Because of the Emolga's ground-type immunity, the only Pokemon here that makes sense to switch into is Liepard. Fig tanks an Aerial Ace on the switch in that barely does anything. I then go through a Pursuit which crits and immediately kills the Emolga. 1 down. The second Emolga comes in and I decide to go through a Hone Claws because I don't think a Pursuit will kill, and if I use Pursuit without a Hone Claws it will put it in range of healing. Unfortunately though, Emolga hits back with a really hard Volt Switch, which means I can't even get off any damage even though I've just boosted my attack. I honestly expected Thig to tank that a bit better considering how well it took the Aerial Ace. I'm actually a little bit stuck here because the only Pokemon that can reasonably come in and not die immediately and do some damage is Darumaka, who I don't really want to have to use because of the Hustle ability. Pumpkin takes a lot on the switch in from a Volt Switch and then is outsped the next turn and gets hit by another Volt Switch. Luckily Hustle doesn't activate and we get a Fire Punch off, killing the Emolga and winning the gym badge. That could have gone really badly really quickly, and we did have a misplay and lose 1, but it could have turned out a lot worse. And with that, we're on to the next portion of the game. Gord can immediately evolve because of our new level cap, which is very useful. And then we get our only new encounter before the next gym, a Fungus we name Grape. Grape is incredibly good for toxic stalling, which I know everyone will hate, but unfortunately is the only way I'm going to win some of these later fights. But for now it'll be boxed. And with that, we're already on to the next gym. Clay is definitely a run killer that I'm scared of. Luckily, the only part of this team that scares me at the moment is his Extra Drill. The other 2 Pokemon should go down to my grass types. And we start off this fight very nicely by sending out Melon, who immediately kills the Krokorok with a Miracle Seed boosted Giga Drain. Always how you want to start off the gym fight. Then the Extra Drill comes out, and again this thing scares me because it's got Hone Claws, meaning it could set up and sweep my entire team if I'm not careful. Because of this, I decided to go through a Leech Seed for some passive recovery and chip damage. Luckily Leech Seed doesn't miss and Extra Drill just goes through a weak Bulldoze, which lowers my speed but really doesn't do a lot of damage. I then go for Stun Spore to hopefully paralyze the stupid Extra Drill, but unfortunately it misses. Luckily it just goes for a Rock Slide, which doesn't do too much damage, especially after Leech Seed recovery. I decide to take a risk and go for another Stun Spore, which misses for a second time, and then get hit by another weak Rock Slide, which luckily thanks to Leech Seed isn't doing too much damage. I don't bother with Stun Spore again and actually go through a Giga Drain this time, but unfortunately I don't have priority, and because of the Bulldoze I'm actually slower at this point, and I get flinched by the Rock Slide. I'm actually fairly low at this point, so I really need Giga Drain to hit this time. And luckily, it gets through the Rock Slide flinch and I do get a Giga Drain off. Unfortunately though, the Giga Drain and Leech Seed damage doesn't quite get the kill, leaving Extra Drill on literally a sliver. Unfortunately, it does mean that Clay heals next turn, but I get off another Giga Drain, restoring most of my HP. Extra Drill then goes for another weak Rock Slide that doesn't flinch. I use Giga Drain again and manage to get the KO on top of the Leech Seed, and Clay's scary Pokemon goes down, leaving only the Palpitoad, which is easily outsped and killed with 1 Giga Drain because of the 4 times weakness. That gym was ridiculously easy compared to the other ones, and I was expecting a lot more trouble with Extra Drill. Luckily, Melon was able to pretty quickly wall and kill any of Clay's Pokemon, excluding the Extra Drill, which I only had a little bit of trouble with because of the Stun Spore misses. So with that, we get a pretty easy 5th gym badge, and we're on to the rest of the game. Thanks to the new level cap of 35, we can immediately evolve Pumpkin into Darmanitan, who I've mentioned before, is an excellent encounter, probably one of the best in the game, so I'm very excited to see what this thing can do. We found our next encounter in Chargestone Cave, a Tynamo I name Orange. To be honest, this thing took 8 years to find. I think it's got a 1% encounter, but hopefully it'll be worth it considering it's got no weaknesses thanks to Levitate. Then while exploring Celestial Tower, we found our next encounter, a Litwick we named Strawberry. Strawberry will be excellent as it's a Ghost Fire type, incredibly fast and incredibly strong. Also while in Celestial Tower, we run into an Ace Trainer with a very fluffy doggy, which unfortunately one-shots and kills Gord the Crocodile, which is very irritating because he would have been a very good matchup into a lot of the Elite Four. So rest in peace Gord, unfortunately you've never reached your full potential. And before you know it, we're already at the next gym. Now this gym's very complicated and I've come up with a really complicated difficult strategy that hopefully you're able to follow along with here. Skylar starts off by sending out Zubat and I start off with Banana. So I decided to come up with a really interesting play of using Spark, which pays off and I one-shot Swoobat. Then Skylar sends in Unpheasant. I decide to be a bit of a maverick and change things up and go for a second Spark, which actually misses the KO, but just a sliver. Luckily it only goes to Razor Wind, which is just a setup move, so on the next turn I outspeed and use another Spark and kill the Unpheasant in one hit. After a long and hard fight, Skylar is down to our last Pokemon, her ace, Swanana, and this Swanana has the potential to sweep my entire team, but I get incredibly lucky, Banana hits another Spark, one-shotting it. To be honest, that was probably the most intense and close gym badge I've ever had in a game. So I'm glad I was able to share it with all of you. And with that, we've got the 6th gym badge. Thanks to our new level cap, Orange evolves into Electros, and also Fungus the Grape evolves into Amoonguss, so they're definitely making appearances on our team now they're fully evolved, as both Grape and Orange are incredibly good Pokemon. And we only actually get one more encounter before the next gym, a skunkfish I name Eggplant. I've never liked skunkfish, I hate the fact it farts at you when you send it out, but we'll see if he gets some use. There's definitely not a hint that I might use him as a joke and nearly end this entire run. Anyway, on to the second to last gym. If you thought the last gym strategy was complicated, you haven't seen anything yet. I'd honestly make sure you're strapped in, because this is going to get crazy. After hours of theory crafting, I decide to start off with Pumpkin, who goes through a fire punch. Again, this might seem a bit weird, but it pays off because I one-shot with the Vanillage. Next comes out Beartick, and this thing is terrifying. Luckily though, I'm able to outspeed and one-shot. God, this is intense. Then, onto Bryson's last Pokemon. Cryogonal comes out, the ace of aces, and actually outspeeds and hits me with a very hard Aura Beam. Luckily, Pumpkin is able to hang on and retaliate with a Fire Punch, which just manages to get the KO. What a close gym fight that was. Luckily, our big brain plays of using Fire Punch and Flare Bullets paid off, and we managed to get the second to last gym badge. And with that, we're on to our last couple of encounters. We go to Dragon Spiral Tower and catch Druddigon, and to be honest, this was a bit of a surprise because I was expecting to get Golok here, but I completely forgot Druddigon was a thing. Druddigon's fine, but I'm about to get a much better dragon encounter, so it's not extremely useful. Speaking of which, now that we've got access to Surf, we can get into Mr. Alton's cave, which seems to be having issues. I really don't know what's going on with my very special Nintendo at this point, but we're going to ignore it, and we find an Axew. Axew is obviously a fantastic encounter, probably one of the best ones we can get in this run, and we name him Chili Pepper. And now with our fully evolved team, we're ready to fight the last gym leader. And unfortunately, because Drayden's Pokemon know Dragon Dance, there's only really one safe option for this fight, and unfortunately that involves Toxic Stalling with Amoonguss. With the moveset of Toxic, Clear Smog, Giga Drain and Synthesis, I can't really think of a better option than Grape. Clear Smog will reset any Dragon Dances as well, so it can't really set up on me. I should be very easily able to Toxic Stall here thanks to Giga Drain, Synthesis and a Black Sludge I picked up off a Garbodor outside this town. And with Drayden's Thirst Pokemon, this strategy works pretty flawlessly. Every time it goes to Dragon Dance, I use a Clear Smog to reset any stat changes, and it can only really hit me very weakly, and considering I'm healing every turn, it's not long before the Thraxew goes down. Next, Drayden sends out Druddigon, and this could actually interrupt my strategy a little bit because it knows Dragon Tail, which could switch me out, causing a few issues. Luckily though, the stupid looking dragon only goes through a weak Night Slash and we're able to get a Toxic off. On the next turn I go through a Synthesis, but which might have been unnecessary considering I was already quite high health, and then Druddigon actually hits a Dragon Tail, forcing me to switch into Banana. Well, being forced to switch out is very annoying. Being forced to switch into Banana was actually very lucky, considering now I can just go through a Volt Switch and send Grape right back in. So thanks to a little bit of luck, Dragon Tail switching me out really didn't affect that much. And on the switch in, Grape gets hit by a very weak Revenge, which is immediately healed by the Black Sludge. I then decide to go through a Giga Drain just to keep myself nice and healthy, which was definitely the correct decision because Druddigon then decides to get a crit. It still doesn't do a lot, especially because it's resisted. I actually do predict a heal here, so I go through a Toxic, but unfortunately the last gym leader only heals with a Hyper Potion, which is surprising. I was expecting a full restore. I then go through a Synthesis to keep myself nice and healthy, and Druddigon just goes for another weak Revenge as Toxic damage starts to really build up. On the next turn I go for another Giga Drain just to keep myself nice and healthy. Druddigon goes for a Dragon Tail and misses, and then it goes down. Now comes out the ace. Usually this Haxorus is very scary because of Dragon Dance setup, but with Clear Smog I'm not too worried. I decide to start by going for a Toxic, which unfortunately misses, and then I get even more unlucky because the Dragon Tail hits and forces me to switch out. Now Strawberry could probably do a lot of damage here, but unfortunately Haxorus knows Assurance, meaning I can't keep him in. On the switch in, Haxorus goes for Assurance, which doesn't do too much to Grape. Then on the next turn I get incredibly unlucky because I go for Toxic again, but unfortunately Haxorus outspeeds and hits with a critical hit slash that does a lot of damage, and activates my Effect Spore, which means it gets paralyzed and I can no longer rely on Toxic Stalling to kill it. Because of the crit last turn, I'm left low enough where I have to go through a Synthesis here or risk putting myself in danger. And then Haxorus starts setting up with Dragon Dance. This could get kind of scary, so on the next turn I go for Clear Smog, and luckily it just goes for another Dragon Dance, meaning the Clear Smog hits and resets any of its stat changes. I then go for another Clear Smog, expecting it to use another Dragon Dance, and it hits me with a Dragon Tail, which again crits. Orange the Electros is forced in, and I decide it's safe enough to go for a Crunch, which does some decent damage, while Haxorus just goes for another Dragon Dance. I realise on the next turn it's probably going to heal, so I decide to take my opportunity to switch back into Grape the Amoonguss. And luckily, my prediction was correct for once. Because Haxorus has already got a Dragon Dance off, we have to go through a Clear Smog here. Luckily it gets paralysed and we're able to cleanly reset its stats. On the next turn I go for Synthesis, and Haxorus just goes for another Dragon Dance. We're actually in a pretty good position here, because even if Haxorus manages somehow to get off the Dragon Dance and I don't reset the stats, it will always attack with the low priority move of Dragon Tail, meaning I can always reset its stats before it attacks. Basically meaning if I just continue to spam Clear Smog, I will just win this battle by default. We get Haxorus low enough to the point where one more clear smog will kill it, and of course it uses Dragon Tail, forcing me to switch out. Luckily it switches me out into Strawberry, who can outspeed and kill because it's paralysed. And that's the final gym leader taken care of. The difficulty is definitely mellowed out a lot since the beginning of the game. These later gym leaders haven't been as difficult just because the encounters have been better, but the difficulty is definitely going to pick up again at the Elite Four. Before we can get to the Elite Four though, Cheren challenges us to one final battle, and I'm honestly surprised he's only got 4 Pokemon for his final battle, but I suppose all of the gym leaders in this game have a max of 3 Pokemon. Thinking about it is very strange. It definitely contributes to the later half of this game being a lot easier than the beginning half. Strange design decisions aside, we have to carry on with the fight. I start off with Strawberry and try to go through a Will-O-Wisp, but unfortunately Cheren predicts this and uses Unpheasant to use Taunt. While Strawberry can probably take the Unpheasant, I decide to play it safe and switch into Orange, who will definitely one-shot the Unpheasant. On the switch in, I take a very weak Air Slash, and then on the next turn, Orange uses Spark and one-shots the stupid looking bird, which honestly looks like it's been playing too much Slay the Spire. Next up, Cheren decides to send out its Samurott because the weaknesses. I honestly don't know what was going through the AI's head when it decided to send out a Pokemon that was weak to the Pokemon I have out, but hey ho. Samurott outspeeds Orange and actually hits very hard with an Aqua Tail. I retaliate with a Spark that nearly one-shots but unfortunately doesn't quite get the KO. I realise that another Aqua Tail will kill me here, but I decide it's worth staying in and using Spark because Cheren will obviously heal. Unfortunately though, I didn't realise that Cheren doesn't actually have any healing items in this fight, meaning that Orange unfortunately is killed by another Aqua Tail. He wasn't on the team very long, but he would have been an invaluable member of the Elite at the Elite Four, so rest in peace to Orange, we hardly knew ye. The rest of this fight is fairly straightforward, like the rest of Cheren's fights during this game. Banana comes in and revenge kills the Samurott. Pumpkin one-shots the Simisear with a dig, and then one-shots the Liepard with a Fire Punch. We nearly made it through this entire game without losing a single Pokemon to Cheren, but he had to just get the one KO in right at the end. And with that final loss, we're ready for the Elite Four. We go in with Strawberry, the Chandelier, Melon, the Whimsicott, Chili Pepper, the Haxorus, Grape, the Amoonguss, Pumpkin, the Darmanitan, and Banana, the Zebstrika. Let's see if our band of Pokemon has what it takes to beat the Elite Four. First up is Shauntal. Shauntal should be the easiest of the Elite Four thanks to Strawberry, who can outspeed and one-shot all of Shauntal's Pokemon with Shadow Ball. Let's put my big brain strategy to the test. First up is Cofagrigus, who is successfully outsped in one shot. 1 down, 3 to go. Next is Golok, who is also outsped and killed with Shadow Ball. And then Shauntal sends out her big stupid jellyfish, which if you guessed it was outsped and one shot, you'd be correct. Now I've done the calcs on Shauntal's own Chandelier, and the only way we should be outsped is if it has a positive speed nature, which is like a 5 in 25 shot happening. Even if I do get outsped, as long as I don't get crit, I'll survive and still be able to one-shot. Now, I'm not great at maths, but I know enough to call bullshit when I see it. Like, what the actual fuck? This is such a bad start to the Elite Four. Strawberry is such a good Pokemon, and losing it by getting so unlucky actually hurts. Rest in peace, Strawberry. Luckily, Pumpkin is able to come in and handle the bullshit cheating Chandelier with a combination of Dig and Fire Punch, but I'd lie if I said I wasn't as salty as hell about this death. So that's one member of the Elite Four down, but losing something this early for no real reason is going to make the rest of this a lot harder. We're one Pokemon down, but the show must go on. Next up is Grimsley, who should be fairly straightforward, even if I don't have an exact plan of how to handle this. I decide to lead with Pumpkin while Grimsley leads with Scrafty. Pumpkin should be able to take anything this thing can dish out and hit fairly hard. I start with Fire Punch, which just misses the KO, while Scrafty hits the Sand Attack. Grimsley then goes for a Thor Restore while I hit another Fire Punch through the accuracy drop. Grimsley then uses a second Thor Restore, and I hit another Fire Punch. Clearly Strawberry is watching over us from heaven, or wherever the ghosts go when they die a second time. Grimsley finally runs out of Thor Restores and we're able to take out the Scrafty with no damage taken. Good start. Crocodile comes out next, and there's no way Pumpkin can take an Earthquake here, so I switch into Melon, who should be able to take the hit fairly well. Seeing this big red crocodile though does fill me with a sense of longing for what could have been. Stupid fluffy doggy. I then go through a Giga Drain, which unfortunately just misses the KO, and the big crocodile retaliates with a weak foul play. A second Giga Drain is enough to knock out the crocodile and bring me back up to near full HP. Next up is Bishop, who threatens with X Scissor, and Melon really can't touch this thing because it's still typing, so I switch out Melon for Banana. Banana actually takes a decent chunk of damage from X Scissor and retaliates with a Flame Charge. I then get hit by a Night Slash that would have killed had it crit, but luckily it doesn't. It does leave me low enough where I need to switch out here however, so I check who can take a hit from this thing the best and decide on Chili Pepper. On the switch in, Chili Pepper takes a weak aerial ace and then outspeeds with Dig for the knockout. Good first fight for Chili Pepper, to be honest. After gaining a few level ups, Grimsley sends out his last Pokemon, Lipard. Lipard really isn't a threat but knows Fake Out, so I decided it's worth switching into Pumpkin here. On the switch, Pumpkin takes a Fake Out and then on the next turn takes a weak Night Slash and then one hits with a Fire Punch. Second Elite Four member down, could have gotten dicey there had my luck not held up, but we managed to get through with no casualties. Up next is Caitlin, who leads with Reuniclus, how the you meant to pronounce that, while I lead with Melon. This thing is fairly tanky, so go through a Leech Seed to get some chip damage in and passive recovery, and it goes through a very hard Psychic. I then quickly realised Leech Seed was pointless because of Magic Guard, which means it can't take any indirect damage. That was a mistake. I then go for Giga Drain, which means another non-crit Psychic doesn't kill, but it does leave me low enough where I have to now switch out. I decide my best bet is probably Chili Pepper, who I'm hoping to set up with. I managed to avoid a Focus Blast on the switch in, and on the next turn I go for Dragon Dance. I get hit by a fairly hard Psychic, but luckily I survive, and now I've got a Dragon Dance boost, which should help me sweep the rest of this team. Luckily with my Dragon Dance boost and damage from Melon, Reuniclus then goes down to a single Dragon Claw. From here is a fairly clean sweep with Dragon Claw, to be honest. Sigurd the Lith is out next and is outspared and goes down in one hit. Next is Mushana, who is fairly tanky, but still can't survive the boosted Dragon Claw. Caitlin's down to our last Pokemon, Gothitelle, and this Gothitelle can survive the Dragon Claw if it rolls low, which unfortunately it does. However, Gothitelle just goes for a Calm Mind, which means on the next turn, Caitlin goes through a Thor Restore and we're immediately able to bring it back down into the red by rolling low again. Caitlin uses her last Thor Restore, and in hindsight it would have made more sense to go through another Dragon Dance to stop putting it into the red, but it doesn't matter because the third Dragon Lore finally rolls a slightly higher and manages to kill the stupid Gothitelle. That's the third member of the Elite Four down, just one more to go. Next up is Marshal, who's by the far the scariest member of the Elite Four. His Pokemon are all fairly tanky and hit really hard. Marshal starts off with 4 while we start off with Melon. You start the fight by going with the Leech Seed and only get hit by a very weak Bulldoze in return. We then get off a decently strong Giga Drain, while Thor goes through another Bulldoze. The AI really hates being slower than you in this game, and will always go through a speed lowering move, if it has one. Even with 2 speed drops though, we still outspeed and bring Thor into range of the Leech Seed kill, who gets off another Bulldoze before going down to Leech Seed chip. Easy start to this fight. Up next is Mushana, who threatens with U-turn. Now I should switch out here, but for some reason I don't. I honestly couldn't say why, because a crit would 100% kill. Luckily it doesn't kill and Melon survives a fairly hard jump kick, and we manage to get off a Leech Seed. My brain must have switched off at this point because I still don't switch out and take a very hard U-turn, which somehow doesn't kill. Never punished. Because of blind luck we get a Giga Drain off into Swark and Melon doesn't die. At this point though I have to switch, so I go into Chili Pepper, who I hope to set up with and then sweep the rest of this team. I get hit with a fairly strong Stone Edge on the switch in and then go through a Dragon Dance. Before I can get a Dragon Dance off though, I get hit with a second Stone Edge, which I mean really, you do a Nuzlocke and hit that move twice in a row. Sometimes the AI does take the piss a little bit. Luckily with the Dragon Dance boost though I can start killing things. Swap goes down to a single Dragon Claw and then Mushana gets sent back out and goes down to another Dragon Claw. Next up is Conkeldurr. I'm fairly sure we'll live a single Dragon Claw, so I do need to switch out here. I would like to switch into Grape here, who I think can take anything this Conkeldurr can do fairly well, but I'm worried about Effect Spore triggering Guts, so I switch into Pumpkin. Unfortunately, Pumpkin takes more than I thought he would from a Hammer Arm, so I have no choice but to switch into Grape anyway. On the switch in, Hammer Arm hits fairly hard, and then of course Effect Spore does trigger, meaning this thing is now scary, even if it does have the stupid clown nose. I decide to go for Giga Drain to keep myself nice and healthy. Marshal hits a third Stone Edge in a row, which does a lot. Luckily Giga Drain brings the stupid muscle clown into the range of dying to poison, and it just goes for another Stone Edge which misses, and then poison takes it down. That's the Elite Four done. We only lost one Pokemon, it was to some extremely bad luck, but now we've got a double champion fight against N and Ghetsis, and I do not feel ready for this at all. After a bunch of cool story stuff that no one cares about, and catching a legendary that I won't be using, we're ready for the final 2 fights. Now as a replacement for Strawberry, in my infinite wisdom I think it'd be funny to bring a joke Pokemon, which will definitely not come back to bite me in the ass at all. And with that it's time for Stunkfish the Eggplant to find N's legendary dragon Zekrom. Zekrom, in fear of my stinky fish, sets up a light screen while we hit an underwhelming super effective Mud Bomb, which doesn't even lower Zekrom's accuracy. Good start. We then take a Giga Impact fairly well, thanks to a lot of HP and defense EVs. and then we managed to proc static. So well done, Eggplant, you're doing extremely well. Zekrom needs to recharge after Giga Impact, so we managed to get off another Mud Bomb. We then get off the final Mud Bomb, which just misses the KO, but we survive the second Giga Impact, and thanks to Rocky Helmet, End's legendary dragon goes down. Thanks to the farting fish. I can't be the only one that finds that slightly funny. Up next is the Nuzlocke, and I should probably sack my Eggplant here, but I feel like taking down a legendary dragon means that she should get to live. So I switch out into Pumpkin, who gets hit by a fairly hard blizzard on the switch-in. I then go through a Flare Blitz, which one-shots the ice cream cone but leaves Pumpkin just under half health, meaning I'm going to need to switch out, especially because up next is Caracosta. I decide switching into Melon here is my best idea, because she walls the Caracosta fairly well and is 4 times super effective against it. So I switch in and take a fairly weak Waterfall. I then go through a Giga Drain which one-shots and brings me back to full health, or it should one-shot if Caracosta didn't have Sturdy, and then start spamming full restores and I spot spamming Giga Drain, never able to kill the Caracosta because of Sturdy. Eventually though, N runs out of healing items and Caracosta goes down. This is kind of quite good because now he has no more healing items for the rest of the fight, so thank you Sturdy. N sends out Klinklang next, but I'm fairly sure it's actually Zeraora because Zeraora knows Flamethrower, which will be super effective into Melon. So I decide to play it safe and switch into Chili Pepper. I guess correctly, and Chili Pepper is easily able to tank Flamethrower, and I start setting up Dragon Dancer. But definitely not Zeraora hits a fairly hard first Focus Blast, meaning I'm only able to get one Dragon Dance off. But on the next turn, I one-shot with Dragon Claw. Or I get the lowest roll possible and get hit by another Focus Blast. Honestly, according to my calcs, that had a 98% chance to kill. This is just Strawberry's death all over again. Rest in peace, Chili Pepper. This is really bad because I've now lost my only Hydreigon counter. If only I had another dragon type in the PC I could have bought instead of Eggplant. Honestly, that luck and me thinking it was funny to bring a joke Pokemon might have just lost me the entire run. Anyway, the show must go on and I send out Banana, and outspeed with Wild Charge and kill the cheating Zoroark. As forces N to send out his real Klink, who is hit by a really hard Flame Charge and only retaliates with a Metal Sound that lowers my special defense by 2 stages. I start playing really sloppy here because I'm so annoyed about Chili Pepper, because I go through another Flame Charge despite being at -2 special defense. Klink goes through a Hyper Beam, which would have 100% killed had it not missed. Thank God it did. Lady Luck is really all over the place today. On the next turn I go through another Flame Charge which takes down the stupid Klink, but I really need to get my head on straight if I want to win this. Ends down to his last Pokemon, an Archeops. Luckily, Banana is able to outspeed him one-shot, winning us the fight. That leaves only Ghetsis. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not confident about this fight. At this point I'm very much regretting bringing a joke Pokemon because I thought it'd be funny. So here we go, live or die, final battle time. I'm not able to change my starting Pokemon from the last fight, so we're starting with our stinky Eggplant Fish. Ghetsis starts with Kothagrigus and likes to Toxic Stall with Protect. Grape can't be poisoned and can keep himself healthy with Giga Drain, so I decide to switch him in. Toxic fails, but on the next turn I get hit with a really strong Psychic. I then use Toxic myself on the Toxic stalling Kothagrigus, so now I just have to stall him out. Knowing I'll survive the crit here, I go for Synthesis to heal myself to get an extra turn of Toxic damage, while taking another strong Psychic. I then decide to switch to Pumpkin, who I can feel can take a Psychic fairly well and then should be able to kill the Kothagrigus after the Toxic damage build up. Attack the Psychic, getting lucky and not getting crit. On the next turn, I'm able to outspeed and kill the stupid floating coffin with a Flare Blitz. 1 down, 5 to go. Next, Tauros comes out, and this thing hits like a truck. I decide Eggplant will probably be able to take a few hits though, and hopefully lower its accuracy with Mud Bomb and maybe paralyze with Static. I do get the Static proc on the switch-in, but I do take a lot more damage than I'd actually hoped for. I then go through a Mud Bomb that does lower Tauros' accuracy, which means Head Smash misses on the next turn. Just the kind of luck I need to pull off a win here. I then get off another Mud Bomb, and Tauros gets paralysed. I then decide it's better to go out Thunderbolt to guarantee more damage, which brings it into the red. Unfortunately though, my Stinky Fish then gets hit with a very hard Head Smash, and it gets taken out. Luckily, Bouthalon goes down in the process thanks to Rocky Helmet. Rest in peace, Stinky Fish. I bought you as a joke and you did more than I could have ever asked for. To be honest, my entire worldview on Stunkfish has been changed around thanks to this. Maybe the next time I'm playing a game and it farts at me as a wild encounter, I might just catch it and use it. For now though, rest in peace. Now awkwardly I have to send in a Pokemon before Ghetsis does, meaning I have to kind of guess what he's going to send out. I decide Melon is my best bet, because Ghetsis might send in Seismitoad as it's his best Pokemon against Eggplant. And either I predicted correctly here or got very lucky, because out comes the ugly Throg. This is the least scary of Ghetsis' Pokemon, as I can outspeed in one shot with 4 times effective Giga Drain. The next Pokemon, however, is not going to go down that easy. The Run-Ender Hydreigon, who without Chili Pepper I really don't have an answer for, comes out next. I decide to sack Melon here, who thanks to Prankster gets a priority Stun Spore off crippling the Hydreigon and giving the rest of my team a slightly higher chance of taking this thing out. Melon decides he doesn't want to die today, dodging the scary dragon's fire attack. This is great because it means I get a Leech Seed off as well as the Stun Spore. Unfortunately though, my luck then runs out next turn, as Hydreigon hits a Fire Blast, killing Melon. Rest in peace Melon, you were certainly an MVP of this run and it wouldn't have been possible without you. I decided at this point by switching between Grape and Pumpkin, I should be able to PP stall the Fire Blast, allowing Grape to safely take this monster out. Thanks to Leech Seed, it also brings Pumpkin back to full health. Interestingly, being paralysed actually makes this more difficult because every time it's paralysed it's not using PP that I'd like to get rid of, and I can't Toxic Stall it either. But oh well, time for stalling. If you think it's boring watching this sped up at 500%, can you imagine what it's like playing it? Unfortunately, Ghetsis does use a full restore after stalling for a few turns, which doesn't at least cure the Leech Seed. And then decide Grape can probably survive with at least one Fire Blast on full HP, and go through a Toxic, which luckily hits. Then it's back to stalling. Unfortunately, stalling backfires here, because for some reason, Hydreigon goes for a Surf instead of Dragon Pulse on a switch in turn to Pumpkin. I realise he must have been out of PP for Fire Blast and I just miscounted, and Dragon Pulse would probably kill Pumpkin anyway, but why did the AI try to use Surf on Grape? Surely Dragon Pulse Stab would have done a lot more? Mandus, but either way, because of my miscount and the AI being strange, Pumpkin goes down to a Surf. Rest in peace you mad monkey. I'm down to my last 2 Pokemon. I know Banana won't survive the Dragon Pulse, but I don't think Grape will either. I don't have the choice though. I have to hope he'll survive with one more hit and get a heal off, which should be in the clear with this Hydreigon. Somehow Grape survives on 15 HP, and this means I'm able to get off the Synthesis. At this point I should be able to stall out the Hydreigon without any more deaths. On the next turn we get hit by another Dragon Pulse and then Hydreigon finally goes down. Melon and Pumpkin have to be avenged, but we're not in the clear with winning this fight just yet. We've got 2 other issues to deal with first. First of these 2 issues is Electros, which is a problem because it knows Flamethrower threatening Grape and is bulky enough where Banana can't really threaten it. I decide I need to get a Toxic off here, and Grape manages to tank a Flamethrower and luckily hits a Toxic. This puts Electros on a timer, meaning I just need to stall it out. More stalling, fun. I decide I have to try and keep Banana healthy for as long as possible, so I pray that Grape can take another Flamethrower. Thanks to some Guardian Angel looking over us, Grape takes another hit, healing some of the damage with Synthesis, enough to where I think Grape might survive another hit. To give Grape some breathing room, I take a risk and switch Banana in. Banana takes a lot of damage, but survives, and toxic damage is starting to build up. I can't let Banana take another hit however, so I use Volt Switch to get some extra damage and get Grape back in. Grape survives, but unfortunately the next turn there's nothing I can do to keep him alive, so I have to sack my brave little mushroom. Rest in peace Grape, without you stalling I wouldn't have gotten this far. Electros goes through an acrobatics and the Grape goes down. Luckily Electros goes down to toxic damage though. It all comes down to this, 1v1. My damage Banana versus Bishop. I go through a flame charge which does a lot but not enough for even a 2-hit KO. This isn't looking good. Bishop hits me with a Night Slash which luckily doesn't crit but leaves Banana in the red. This is it, if I don't crit here, I lose. Me and Banana have our backs against the wall. We dig deep, thinking about all the friends and sacrifices we made along the way. And somehow, with what must have been divine intervention from our fallen comrades, Banana actually pulls off the crit, winning us the run. Like, holy shit, Banana and all of our fallen friends really pulled through this fairly hard challenge, and somehow we won, thanks to a fuckload of luck and my brave Pokemon. If you made it this far, I just want to say seriously thank you so much for watching. This is my first Nuzlocke video I've ever made and it took a lot of work, so it really is appreciated. If you liked it and want to see more, feel free to sub and like or comment. It will really help develop this channel and give me feedback. Either way, thanks again.